Hello, I'm Helen Behan, actor.
Hi, Helen. Absolute thrilled to be on this. And we should have recorded the outtakes of trying to set this up with.
A small little disaster, a pre-show disaster.
It was a good documentary there to be made, to kind of fly on the wall. So look, I was going to, you were on my list to kind of do this for a while, and then when I asked you, suddenly your life kind of has exploded in the last 48 or whatever weeks. So now I'm talking to Helen Behan.
There's been a mild eruption.
Yeah, so now I'm talking to Helen Behan, who's a nominee for both a BAFTA and an IFTA, and also is featured in another BAFTA nominated drama as well, with Glenda Jackson. So come here, tell me, where did all this start for you?
So my story is a very unorthodox, meandering route into the world of drama and acting. And I suppose I'm a qualified nurse. I should put that out there. That's my initial profession. So I did some plays at school, always loved the concept of acting. The thought of being someone else was a big show off at school, was the lead in my school play. I was Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, had my London accent, had a great time. And I really was very alive on stage, and I really thought, Jesus, this is where I should live. This is fabulous. I was 15 and brimming with confidence. And then I kind of grew up and things were limited in the area where I lived, and I decided I'd be a nurse. It was going to be one thing or the other, Hollywood or nursing. And the nursing really was there from when I was 5, as was the show-offiness. And so I went to college, became a nurse, had a family, and that was that. Yeah. I did a couple of courses in the Gaiety, like a page to stage thing. And I suppose I still was in love with the idea after that, but the thoughts of kind of live theatre scared the crap out of me. And I just thought, in those classes, it was so basic that you didn't really get a great feel for what it was. We were just kind of transcribing script and interpreting it and playing games. And it was great, but it wasn't the meat I was after. So not that I didn't get disheartened or anything like that. I wanted to do it, but I thought, God, I don't know how I'm going to get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
This route. But I did a few more of those and enjoyed them. And it kind of reignited my want for it. But like that, sorry, pause. Can I pause?
I can pause you. Go on. So I think I was going to mention the fact that you were a nurse, because I think that's been a huge part of your life. And we'll kind of get to that in a couple of minutes, because obviously right now we're in the middle of time when you're being very much needed. But you as a child, you were mentioning kind of nursing was there from a very young age. What was it? Was that idea of...
Yeah, I used to get little kind of stethoscopes for Christmas and birthdays. I used to be going around injecting everybody with big plastic needles, and liked the idea of helping or stabbing people. I haven't quite identified which. And I loved it. Always wanted to do acting as well, but there was no real... there's a parochial hall around Laytown when I was growing up, and we had a youth club, and it was brilliant. But there was no drama at school. There was nothing kind of around. So as much as I wanted to do it, there just wasn't anything available. And so when I was in secondary school, I was Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady and loved that. And after school, I suppose, I remember when I was 15 in school and doing the play, a priest came to a drama session we were having, I remember, because I went to the convent and often there were priests knocking around. But he came up to see the drama session, and I think he had been somehow involved in drama wherever he worked. But we did this improv thing up in the common area upstairs, and of course I, being my show-offy self, dived right into the middle and gave it 100%. And I always remember he came over to me afterwards and he said, if you don't pursue this, it's a sin. Because he said, you've got something, and I can't, do you know what I mean? It's a sin, say a prayer. Yeah. But I thought, I'm going to, that was a real confidence booster to have a stranger or somebody tell me, you potentially have promise in this area. So that always kind of stuck with me. And then went to college, became a nurse, and did a few things in the Gaiety, a couple of courses, and really enjoyed that. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't kind of enough drama in those games. I suppose I didn't spend long enough at it there to let it develop, and theatre kind of frightened me a little bit. But it reignited my want for drama and for acting. So really, I spent the early years of my adulthood, we'll call them, and I'm knocking the far side of 40 now. So it's 10 years ago that everything changed for me, basically. So I was nursing and working and living and having family and all that. And one night I met Shane Meadows, director of Dead Man's Shoes, This Is England, etc., etc., in my local pub. He was over on holidays, and it was such a huge deal that he was there. It was so unfathomable that he would be there. I was full of baby Guinness and full of I'm going to get up there and talk to him, and God love him, but he's so sound and he was very receptive. I went up, I said, me and my pal said to me, that's Shane Meadows, because I couldn't have picked him out, but I was very familiar with his work. And he said, that's him at the bar. So I got up, got chatting, and we ended up having a couple of drinks together, having a bit of crack together. And I said, right, that's it, you're never going to be in here again. I have to ask you, what's the chances of getting involved? He said, can you act? And I said, I have no idea. I was trying to be humble. I knew I couldn't nail it. And I just said, I don't know if I can or not. And he laughed and he said, give me your number. So I wrote it on the back of a till receipt. There was nothing else to hand. And I think I wrote, give me an in, something like that, and my number at the bottom of it. And I watched him kind of carefully look after it and fold it and tuck it away. He wasn't fobbing me off. It was me and I was trying to get rid of someone. I just scrunched it up and just, I'll give you a call. But he took care of it. And, long story short, he called me about a month or two later, and he said, I'm having auditions for This Is England 88, and I want you to come over. And that was isn't it? I still go, Jesus Christ, if it wasn't for that moment, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Yes, and I've said to Shane, you're responsible. And he said, no, I got you in the door. You have to work hard to keep yourself there, and done that. So it's took me a long time to kind of stop feeling like an imposter because of the way that I came into it. But yeah, basically my very first job ever was on This Is England 88 on Channel 4. It's madness. I was going, there's the camera. Okay, so I won't look in it. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, not a clue. But he was so good to me, and he really nurturing, and made me feel like I could do it. Don't worry, we have 100 goes if you need 100 goes, and just told me what to say, told me don't look in the camera, keep going. And plus, because we were improvising on that job, there was a script, it was brilliant, but he let you, and because he knew I was so nervous, to the point that I was vomiting galore around the whole project. It was great for me waistline, not good for me head. I said, what am I doing? I've asked for this now, and I don't know if I've got what it takes to go through with it. But he was great to me, and so he took me on board. He used to take me to the monitors and let me wear the cans and listen to what was going on when somebody else was shooting something. So he really kind of said, look, this is what we do here. Are you interested or not? And guided me in. And so I did my first job with him. I got work here on the back of that. Then he called me back to do This Is England 90, and we've been fast friends for 10 years now, because he has a wicked sense of humour. He's such a nice guy, a stand-up guy. He told me he'd call me, and he did, and here we are,
Yeah,
that's a long answer to your question.
I think as well, to say that, to have that kind of beginning, obviously This Is England was the kind of, looking back now, as a seminal, piece of work.
Oh my God, yeah.
But also that kind of chance meeting piece. That takes balls to kind of to make that approach, no matter how
Sure.
much, to kind of go, because we've all been in those situations, but like, it's normally on the way home going,
you miss your moment.
Yeah.
I should have talked to him. Do you know what? I knew if I didn't, I was going to regret it. And the worst thing he could have said was no. And don't forget, I was a few drinks in, so I wasn't overthinking it. I just said, I'll go for it. The worst I can say is no. And I was so happy to be talking to him. Like, this was a big director in a tiny little village in my local pub, where that night was a fella going round robbing purses, and he got caught by the locals, and there was a big melee. And Shane just thought this was brilliant crack, and he said, I feel like I'm at home here in Nottingham. So it was a bedlamy kind of night. And I suppose he remembered me, I remembered him, and he gave me my first role.
You just tell that story, and it's incredible. You think, going to your local pub, seeing one of the best writer directors that has existed in the last 30 years, and going
I know
he's a part. But also, it wasn't just any part. I mean, it was a serious part. It wasn't, you were a feature in it.
Yeah, so what he does is listens when you talk. It's a very sneaky trick, and takes, personal things in about you that you're saying. And if, I'm a serious talker, as you may have guessed. I never shut up. And even when I meet people down the supermarket, I'm just, everything that's going on with me comes out of my mouth. So he picks up on little things. And I don't know whether I had said I was a nurse, or whether he just had that element of my character in mind, but he was very attuned to the way I was, and he said, I've something that will suit you. And then it transpired that I was for that role. Whether I'd said it or not, neither of us can remember, but he said to me, and I remember going over for the audition, and when I tell you, I was so ill. Like, I looked at it the night before the flight, and I was looking at, Woody and Lol and all of them on the TV, thinking, how am I going to slot in there? This is madness. It's ridiculous. I was ill. And I went over, and he said, look, I'm seeing other people. He was actually auditioning people for Woody's girlfriend, separate to me. He brought me over specifically to have this improv thing with Vicky McClure. And so he came down at lunchtime, and Vicky and I had spent the morning together chatting and drinking tea and having the crack. And he came down, he said, we're going to go up now shortly. And he said, we'll just have a bit of lunch. So there they were all around the table, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything. And he said, will you have something? I said, oh yeah, I'll have a bowl of soup, in with 1 spoon of soup, and then gone into the bathroom. I'll be back in a second, just puking, like totally wrecked with nerves. And they were all lovely, really sound, and I thought, Jesus, you're the same as you are on the telly. And I think that's what he does. He gets the very natural aspect of people and puts it out there. And so when it came up to us doing my audition, he said, this is what's wrong with her. Have you ever come across anything like that in work? Or, what would you say if your friend said this? And he said, just get in there and do your job. Talk to your friend, help her out. And so we'd no script. He gave us the bare bones of what the concept of the scene was. And he let it run for 20 minutes. And I was just talking away, 10 to the dozen, trying to kind of, see what I'd say to her and trying to respond to what she was saying to me. And then I was looking over kind of, how am I getting on? And he was, go on, keep going. So I was totally nervous. But then after a couple of minutes of talking to her, I just thought, right, I'm just going to go for this. So I was doing what I thought was right. And after 20 minutes, he sat back and folded his arm, and he said, you're in.
Wow.
I said, what? Wow. It can't be that simple. And he said, do you want the job? I said, yes, I do. Please, thank you. And I let her yelp out of me. And
that's incredible.
And that was it.
I mean, after having, as you said, going back to the kid kind of in the musicals and doing that and wanting to be an actress and kind of, going down the nursing route, doing a few, because you did a couple of plays, back in the day as well, didn't you? You kind of worked.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm kind of then,
So after, to go from school plays to not knowing anything about the business at all, not the terminology, the best boy, who's the best boy? What does that mean? Is there a worse boy? I had no idea. I was absolutely out of my element.
Yeah.
And because he showed me everything as we were going, it was a real schooling, like to be on something that I respected, that I, you know, aspired to eventually get to if I ever got into it. To be landed there straight away was petrifying, thrilling, you know, everything. And I didn't actually, when I look back, I didn't have time to analyze it because I was in the middle of like swimming to stay up and try and keep up with these other people who absolutely knew what they were doing compared to me as far as I was concerned, you know. So I was trying all the time. My aim was to make Shane happy, to do what he asked me to do, to work hard, you know, that if there was a line he wanted to cut, to not be pissy about it and think, oh, well, that's my only line today, or, you know, to always say to myself, he knows best, I'm going to do my job. It's not up to me to decide what's happening. It's his story, it's his thing. Get in there and do that and try and make him not regret asking me to come over. You know, that was my big thing. I felt he's doing me a huge turn here. This is like, people don't do this and it's a big deal and I have to get it right. So as nervous as I was, I just wanted to really prove to him that he hadn't made the wrong decision. So
I mean,
it was
but I mean the performances there, you know, it was brilliant. I mean, like I said, you know, the phenomenon that has been This Is England kind of throughout the years, but the performances, and you're brilliant in it. And I think is that, you know, that sense of, I mean, you watch yourself back, is that something that you can do? I mean, would you watch yourself?
I cringe when I watch myself and I think, oh my God, look at my nose hair. Look at my, you know, I'm looking at things like that. I'm looking, have I got any hairs on my chinny chin? The first time I saw myself was so bizarre. It's like hearing yourself recorded or singing and you go, whoa, that's not me. It looks really weird. And then I was so mystified by the whole thing at the start that I was taking pictures of my name on the screen and I was pausing it when it was like the program was coming and everybody, the whole family was watching. It was a big event and I was looking at it really very critically thinking, oh God, what's everyone going to think? You know, I find it a hard thing to do, to look back at it. But also I've learned to try and kind of, I do it more than once. I look back at something and move on. But if I'm curious about how I responded to something in the moment, in order to better myself, I won't study it, but I'll look at what I'm doing. I'm starting to be able to look at programs as programs and not as something that I'm in. But at the start, it was very much a kind of analysis of my performance and watching what I was doing, how I looked and all that kind of thing.
I mean, because also, I mean, there's an intensity to kind of change work, you know, around because of the style there is. I can imagine there's an intensity in making it, but also, you know, it's real life. The situations are kind of real, and it's kind of, you know. So I say, looking back on that, it's kind of, I say it's hard sometimes because, you know, it's raw as well.
I mean, for all the laughs we had on set, there was a lot of crying, a lot of real crying. Like, rehearsals are like group therapy with Shane. And the reason his stuff is so visceral and so raw and so is that he pulls the actual emotion out of you associated with the story of the character. But he goes in there and gets the real stuff. So when we were rehearsing, like for The Virtues, Stephen, Graham and Shane and myself sat in the room. We were talking about the history of these two characters, this brother and sister and all of that stuff. And we all started telling our own stories. And within minutes, the three of us were crying. They were really hardcore emotions. We were really getting to the depth of all our own shit, you know? And Shane would say, stop, where you're going with that, that's where I want you to go. Store that up. Don't release it all. And then we wouldn't talk about it again till shoot day. And then everybody would be really quiet. There was this sense of occasion that something big was happening. And because that story in particular was so personal to him and to all of us, because of the rehearsal process, we were so invested in getting it right that we left each other alone. Stephen was brilliant to me, really generous with his time, and allowed me to go through my process as it is now to get into that place in my head, because I don't know how good I am in the faking it stakes. I really want to feel what I'm supposed to feel. I really want to go there. So and it's not everybody that gives you the time to get to that place before a take, or, you know, it's very busy on set. So to have that time, to have the luxury of exploring those characters so deeply and investing in them so much that they were a part of you, really meant that when it came to shoot, those emotions were real, those feelings were real. And Stephen said, you know, and it kind of made sense to me, that there's certain moments when you're filming and you don't get it with everybody, but occasionally you get chemistry with another actor and you get to a certain place within your storyline where you move beyond what's happening in the room, that the cameras are no longer apparent to you, and that you're in that moment. And he said, I had that with you today. And, you know, he reamed off the 2 or 3 other people he has it with, and I just thought, Christ, I understand what he's saying, and I can't believe he's saying it about me. But I always, particularly with Shane, want to do well for him. So I will put myself through things. I'll put my body through things, my mind through things that, you know, I find my own well of stuff, my own well of darkness that everybody has is a great source of material for me. And so Shane, like, I remember we were filming the really heavy stuff of Joseph and Anna meeting for the first time in Virtues, and we'd all been through the mill all morning, and then he was shooting some really kind of, Nick Gillespie was our DOP, was brilliant. At one point he'd like iPhone cameras strapped to him and cameras hung at the front and the backs to get images everywhere, but he was right up here in my face. And then Shane came over into my ear just as we were about to do a really kind of visceral, painful close-up, and he told me a joke in my ear and he started laughing and walked off. He's bollocks. So I just think we had great time on set like that, and it's, thank God he's like that, because he can lighten this real darkness that he creates. So you kind of never know what's going to happen, but you're always kind of crouched over when you finish a day, because one way or the other, with laughter or pain, you've been pulled through the ringer on set. And so that's the kind of experience it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. You know, I'm kind of like, I didn't want to get into the Virtues too early because that's all I'll talk about. But
oh, sorry.
No, you're good. No, I think for me, I think that will go down in time as one of the greatest things that I've ever made. And I think there is you could feel it, like everything you spoke about there, in your scenes with Stephen, and also, you know, scenes with Neve and Stephen and scenes with Frank Laverty, and, you know, there's you could see it. It was the most live piece of television I've ever seen. You know, that kind of sense of yeah. And I suppose there's also a sense though that you were all on your game, and Shane included. There was a kind of a, you know, there was, and that levity was kind of there, bizarrely, in something that was so dark. But, you know, the moments of, like, you know, you turning into the mother again for Stephen and kind of Neve. But that juxtaposed with kind of knowing the pain of all those characters, what they were, so cleverly drawn. Particularly for you, I mean, those scenes when both, when you met him for the first time again, but also then later on when, well, I suppose when he got into trouble, and when, you know, when he kind of got into serious trouble back in the house. The intimacy of those moments, Helen, were just extraordinary of what you got there.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's always amazing for me to hear that it's landed, because I'm always afraid I'm the one that's going to cock it up, you know, that I'm the one that's going to, and I suppose there was a lot of trepidation about working with Stephen, because he's absolutely like on fire. Stephen Graham's so hot right now. He's everywhere. He's in Martin Scorsese pictures. He's, you know, and then like he flew back from a meeting with them when we were like, on a break from filming, and he was like a giddy teenager talking about meeting, you know, Robert De Niro. And I was like, oh my God, if I touch you, you touched him yesterday. You know, I was going, this is bananas. We're just 2 degrees away. But he was so, I thought another actor might go, this is my stage, and all the other people like the me's and the, you know, the Franks and the Marks and the Neils might just pale away. But he's not like that. He wants you to hold your own. He wants you to, like, he absolutely raised my game just by being with him. But moments that could have been his, and I have never thought about it that way, except that you see certain people pulling for focus when it's not about the story and it's about the actor, and that's not good. And so when he could have had a moment, you know, a nice moment on camera, he kind of stepped aside and basically gave it to me and gave me time to, he was just so generous in that way that he wasn't, you know, trying to run the show and be the big star on set. He was very, here, we're in this together, we're making this together, we're doing this together. And we spent a lot of downtime together, and that's how Shane, you know, obviously that can be a pleasure or a pain depending on who you're working with. It was a pure joy with this project. So in order to make us, you know, look like a family and fight like a family and laugh like a family, we lived like a family. He sent us out, you know, for meals together and out bowling, and we went to this you know, these escape rooms where you have to figure out the, Jesus, we were killing each other coming out of that. So it was perfect. We had the right family dynamic, and he puts all this time in and all this effort in to make you feel like the real thing. And when you're doing it, then you feel like the real thing. You feel like, you know, for example, that stuff they shot in the pub, of Stephen, who doesn't drink, by the way, shooting that drinking scene in the pub. They were late to get to the shot, and so they put a few quid behind the bar because there was locals there who were willing to participate. And by the time they arrived, people were fairly well on, shall we say, and Shane and our producer Mark was like, oh, what are we going to do? This could be bedlam. And Shane is like a bold child. Let's see what happens, you know, just let's go with it. So they were saying to the locals, now remember, we know that this is Stephen, but you're to call him Joseph because he's Joseph in the, you know, and this is basically what's happening. So he's given them a bit of a background, and they were cautious at the start. By the end of the night, when it all kicked off in the pub, the locals were actually going for the barman saying, leave our friend Joseph alone. Like, they got so, you know, he created this real thing for them, few drinks, and they went for it, and then it was a real night in the pub, a real brawl, a real, you know, but that's how he does it.
But I think I think, you know, in all your performances, I mean, you know, even across love hate, again, the traumatic, you know, not the most light storyline that you could have either.
No.
Tiger, you know, it's not, you know, that but the sense of, I mean, you talk about Shane and kind of what he brings to you and what he kind of brings to a role, but I mean, when you get there, you've got to deliver it yourself, and I think that's what's phenomenal about, you know, this is England, you know, but particularly in the virtues that there was no acting on show, or there was no glorying on show, and there's so many moments that could have gone either way, that could have been played different ways. And I think and the risks, I mean, I remember looking at it kind of going, oh my God, this is so, like, just the conversations even around the dinner table, just even the non-dramatic stuff was just so normal. And you kind of, and it brought this real feeling of dread to it. You kind of go, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, there's loads more.
Yeah.
I think that's
his specialty, you know, that's his specialty. And then just injecting it with a little bit of humor just when you're about to break, you know, and that, I don't know anybody else that does that like him. And particularly with this, anyone that examines pain the way he does, you know, and sits with it and makes you sit with it. And this business of sitting on the face of a character for an uncomfortably long time, watching them decline, makes you contort as an audience member. You know, you're riding with them in pain, you're low with them, you're guilty with them, because they're all emotions we connect with ourselves, even though they're not maybe related to the story of the character. It's pain and guilt and loss and anger and addiction and loneliness, and we've all had some of that. So it's so easy to invest in these characters, because ultimately what you see with them, with what he does, is redemption and hope and humanity and honesty, and that's the thing. This has to be honest. It has to feel honest. And so, like, we'd be in rehearsals, and he'd say, right, we're telling this story. And then he'd throw out a few workshops. Let's imagine this is happening or that's happening. He'd go 360 degrees around every other thing that could happen, just to try them. And then occasionally something happens in the corner with an idea he never thought of. And he'll say, this to me is more interesting. It feels more honest. Let's abandon that and let's do this. And so he meanders. So you never know what's going to happen on the day, because he's always looking for the honest and the truth. Something that people will not go, that doesn't feel right. Even if he's written something, he'll say himself, oh, that sounds shite coming out of your mouth. Oh, will I say it a different way? No, it just doesn't sound right. So he'll say, well, what do you say? What would you say there? Yeah, that sounds better. Let's go with that. So everything is perfect as it's written. For whatever reason, sometimes on the day it comes out a little bit this or that. And so he's willing to collaborate and to mold it and change it so that it feels comfortable in your mouth, so that it seems more real, so that it is more real. And that's why his stuff is so good.
I think as well, I mean, what was captured there as well, I mean, kind of the interrelationship stuff, you know, obviously you mentioned yourself and Stephen, but like also like Niamh Gallagher's character, that, you know, that there's fascinating dynamics going on in that house. And I think that what was brilliant is they were all painted in very different ways. You know, they were all very clear relationships. Come here, can I ask you then, you know, you go back to the beginning and you do This Is England, and it's a big success, and there you are now, and now you're an actress. Like, from someone who had kind of, you know, went up to the pub and kind of done that, and now you're doing it, mentally, like after the shoot, like, where was your head at then when you were kind of going, okay, I'm now this?
It was up my rear end. Truthfully, everybody was so buzzing around that I knew that I had been in it. So there was great hype. And then it settled. And then I thought, I've been in the Shane Meadows thing now. My career is just going to skyrocket. And I thought the result was going to be instantaneous. And I had a year of no after no after no after no, crying, oh my God, I can't take the rejection. It was like a rough time after it. And then lovely, wonderful Frank Shoedice is an Irish director, author, all sorts. He rang me up and he said, listen, I saw you in that, and I'm doing this play with Denise McCormick, and I want you to be in it, and she's brilliant. And so I met her and we did rehearsals, and I thought, okay, it just takes a bit longer. Here we go. So I did a play in the Teachers Club in Dublin, and that frightened the shite out of me, because I thought, you know, when you cock up on TV, they can cut and go again. You're exposed here. If anything happens, everyone's going to see if you make a balls, but here's where you're going to be found out. So I was really, really bricking it on a daily basis, and we rehearsed for weeks, and I loved it. And it was such a dark subject matter. The play was really heavy, and people were saying to me, Jesus, would you ever do something a bit light? But I like the meat, I like the grit, I like the funny as well, as it turns out. But I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could. And after Shane, the first job, I said, if I die tomorrow, the only acting job I ever did was with Shane Meadows. I'm happy to die with that knowledge. And then the sneaky thing about acting, if you love it, is the more you do, the more you want to do. So then this play came along, I did it, and it was a success. It got great reviews. It was in an intimate theatre. I got great feedback, and that gave me more confidence, and I had an agent for a little while and nothing seemed to be happening, and then I went back to do more with Shane, and after that more started happening.
After you went back to work with Shane again on the follow-up,
on This Is England, This Is England 90.
Yeah.
And that was really Combo's story, and what, you know, the end that he was coming to, and he said, I'd love you to come in and carry on this vein of kind of being this person in Lal's life, and maybe she puts you in touch with him and you help him a little bit. And so I had a little bit more confidence then, and I was more, again, it was a gentle part, but it was just boosting me all the time. And I really think, you know, kind of getting me ready for what he had in mind for the virtues. He was just like, I kept thinking, you know, this will be it now, that's it. But he had said to me a few years ago, I have this thing in mind for you. And I said, oh yeah, and didn't expect until it came about that it was going to happen. But he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and so he kept kind of cultivating me and chipping away, trying to get me to realise that I had it in me.
Yeah.
And
my God,
unleash the beast.
Yeah, well, and you know, as well, I mean, we have to talk about, you know, moving away from Shane for a minute, the work the last couple of years with on Elizabeth is Missing, which is also nominated for a BAFTA. But I mean, like,
is it a coincidence I'm in both of those things? I don't know.
That was why it was so important to get to interview you. You aren't in at all. But the work, I mean, Glenda Jackson, I mean, an extraordinary performance. But like, God, I you know, was that such a thrill to kind of be working with somebody like Glenda?
I can't begin to tell you what a joy that was. And I suppose as well, because I had felt, you know, Shane's my friend, and that's why I'm getting this work, to get this other job off my own steam. I felt like, okay, maybe I can do this. So there was that element, and that really gave me, plus I was doing this job in a different accent, which was the first time I would have, you know, really launched into that. So there was a lot to petrify me. I was on my way back from another audition, and my agent rang and said, Dan Hubbard of the Hubbard casting dynasty is on the phone and wants to know, will you go over to do? I said, yes, tell them, yes, I'll be over. And I didn't know about Glenda until after being asked to go. I just thought, this is a job, it's a great story. And then I found out it was her, and I said, oh God. Like, then I started to watch everything that she was in. I said, I'll never be able to hold my own with her. And then have this thing where I'm telling myself, you can do it, you can do it. So I watched her speaking in the Houses of Parliament, because Aisling Walsh, our brilliant director, who's up for an IFTA as well, was sending me, because basically in the book Elizabeth is Missing, which is written by Emma Healy, I've met her, she's lovely. It was a Lancashire accent that they were looking for, but basically broad Northern England. And so she sent me videos of Glenda speaking. You know, she was a Labour MP for 30 years or whatever, after she won her Oscars, those things as she calls them, the Oscars. I said, well, Oscars, it's not a bloody competition, she says. She's hilarious. So so I was watching that, and I thought, God, Glenda's quite posh, but she's from Birkenhead, she's from Liverpool. I said, she doesn't sound, she's the posh end of Birkenhead. So I was kind of panicking, thinking, does she want me to do this, you know, Labour MP voice? Does she want me to kind of make that I come from that stock, or is it, am I going for Lancashire? So I did this broad, anyway, they accepted my accent, and it was coming to meet Glenda on the first day of the read-through is when I met her. I don't know what happened. My flight was delayed, and they were all sitting around the table waiting for me to come. And I was coming straight from the airport in the car to the read-through, and burst in the door in a sweat with my suitcase, and there was Glenda Jackson, and she put her 2 arms out, and Aisling brought me over to meet her, and she said, for God's sake, dear, calm down. So I just sat talking to her for a minute. She said, we've plenty of time, we're all right. She was lovely. We did the read through, and it went really well. I got a great sense then it was going to be a great project. Having nursed so much patients with dementia and Alzheimer's, I knew I had a little insight into the family members of those people and what kind of things they go through. So I suppose my nursing background has helped me hugely in the array of people that I've met, because you meet everybody on the page. This was a really kind of, it's a story that a lot, okay, it was this dual crime, you know, this uncovering of this mystery of the missing sister from years before, but it's really, again, these stories about the human condition, about how we relate to one another as people. And so many people have cared for a relative. I had so many people afterwards saying to me, geez, I used to say those things to my mother. God, my mother was like that, or my father was like that. And it's lovely to be able to feel like you're getting that right when it's something that hits home with people. You know, that people are watching this, going through it, maybe right now going through it, and thinking, God, I'm understood. It's very important for me to help tell those kind of stories. So that was really, and Glenda is a powerhouse. I mean, she was 82 when we filmed that, and we worked the same hours. I mean, she didn't give herself any breaks. She's a workhorse, you know. She'd be up at the crack the same as the rest of us, and she'd be teasing all the lads on the camera and swanning like she's real Hollywood, you know. She's just brilliant and so fascinating. I mean, we'd have a tea break and she said, oh God, of course all this has changed since I was, because it was 30 years since she was in front of the camera, so technically things were very different. And she was saying, what the bloody hell are they doing now if they were swinging a lens, you know? She'd be giving out shit, but just totally like funny, and everybody was laughing at her. She was enjoying teasing them, and well, I'll be outside, and she'd just, you know, come and get me when you're ready. And I just thought, Jesus, she's fabulous. And then we'd be sitting down having a cup of tea while they were doing whatever, and she'd be just stories upon stories about, you know, Bette Davis and people she'd met. And I was just like this, just brilliant and down to earth, you know. She was just brilliant. We'd have dinners in the evening, and it was great. I really, really loved that job. Loved it.
But it's funny, I mean, you mentioned there, you know, and we get to nursing in a second, but you're talking there about also one of the big drives for me for doing this series of kind of interviews was kind of people say not in the art sectors seem to sometimes forget that actors are actual normal people as well, you know, that people have lives.
Yeah.
You know, we all have to.
Yeah.
But I think you know, there's an attitude that the great people or the, you know, the quality people bring to their work of that it's work, you know, that it's kind of, it's a certain weird type of work, but it's kind of still work. But you mentioned there as well the empathetic bit about, you know, the other side of your life, you know, that I mean, as anyone that finds this in 20 years time on the internet, this is we're coming to the end of, I hope, we're coming out from a place of lockdown during the pandemic. But like, you returned to nursing.
I did. I did for several reasons. Mostly because, as any medic will tell you, you can't drive by an accident without stopping to see if there's anything you can do. It's a compulsion as a healthcare professional, you know. Although when they announced it on the flight, is there any doctor on board or nurse, I kind of slipped down and say, please let there be somebody else in case I can't handle it. But this was something I knew I could help with. And they put a call out nationally for people to go back to work. And I've always kind of kept my hand in, because there are long periods between acting jobs, you know, and I am not the stay-at-home type. I go bananas, so I have to be doing and going. So when it really was a compulsion and a no-brainer, for want of a better thing to say about it, I just thought, I have a skill, I can lend a hand, they need a hand, I'm going to see what I can do. So I have, you know, my boss and people that I was connected to in work, and what can I do? And I was told that this corona virus assessment hub was being set up and that they needed nurses for that. And so I went up to meet my manager, and she said, now these people will be, they're positive. They've already been tested, and we're going to be dealing with positive people. And immediately the bottom fell out of my stomach, and I just thought, oh God, no, I don't know if I can do that. What if I get it? What if I bring it home to my dad or my family? I panicked, and and we all did. Everybody did. Everybody that worked in ICU. You know, what I did was difficult. I think my colleagues had a much more difficult time. I think there's people out there still having a difficult time with it, because we've been so good at mostly adhering to the rules. We've managed to flatten the curve, the great saying. But our job in the hub was to get positive or presumed positive patients, assess them remotely, so in this purpose facility that we had, and try and keep them out of the hospitals. So this was at the time when they were afraid of the hospitals becoming overwhelmed. So we basically would take in positive patients that were symptomatic, and they were quite unwell. And the worst thing was they were my age. Like, there was a couple of older people, but they were people like me. And I thought, shit, this thing is very real here. And it doesn't care what age you are, it's coming for you. So I just thought, first of all, if I'm safe and I'm protected, I'm happy to do it. So they were brilliant. We had hazmats and visors and goggles and gloves and aprons and the whole 9 yards, the masks, everything. So I knew I'm safe in here. I can help, and I did, and I loved it. It was tough, but I felt really like I was doing something, contributing, and there's nothing like that feeling. It's a selfish thing. It made me feel good to do it, and
well, I mean,
I did it.
There's an awful lot of thanks that come, you know, not just for you, but via the people that have been, you know, walking that road on behalf of us all over the lab. That's extraordinary. I mean, to kind of, you know, and kind of even, I can't imagine what it's like being in your shoes at the moment, but that kind of surreality of having spent the last 3 or 4 months doing that, and then suddenly, you know.
It's bananas. It's bananas. And where I see it most is with my colleagues in work, because they're like, what? You're doing this and then you're having a bath. And I'm telling them, oh, I'm getting this big gown and I'm having my makeup done. I'm telling them about the other side of life. And there is too. I mean, this other job I do pays better than being a nurse. You know, they're two totally different lives. And they help me in that. This one keeps me grounded, the nursing, working, you know, 13-hour days, working long shifts, seeing people who are ill and helping out. And then going to your trailer and having someone knock on the door and say, can I get you anything? And you just think, oh, Jesus, this is brilliant. I'll have a cup of tea. But, you know, they're two different worlds. And I appreciate this one so much because I've lived this one. And acting is a very difficult job at times, and to do it right and to do it well, you must invest everything of yourself in it. And that can be very emotionally draining and physically draining. And they're long days, they're long bloody days, and it's hard sometimes, it's hard work. But when you've seen, you know, 30-year-olds losing their lives with various illnesses and diseases, and you've seen that, you can appreciate that this is not life and death, and you can take it for what it is, do a bloody good job, work hard, be professional, and enjoy it, and know that you're bringing joy and you know, entertainment, and you're helping people to connect with themselves and their own stories. This is a very important job, acting. It's very important. It's not life or death, and I've seen that job. So I really appreciate both, and both keep me here in the middle.
And I think,
I love it.
You just mentioned earlier on about the intimacy moments of being a nurse as well. You know, the kind of the dialogue with families, or the things you have to discuss. There's I'd say horrific conversations, or, you know, or empathetic conversations that you've had in your career. But I mean, that as well, you know, there's a parallel there across both those. Do you know what I mean? That, you know,
yes.
Those careers that and also there's I suppose in a way, Helen, a kind of fearlessness. I mean, you mentioned about being kind of nervous and stuff, but also alongside that in you seems to be this fearlessness of kind of going, fuck it, I'm going to do this. I might suffer.
Yeah.
I might kill myself suffering for doing it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel, and the older I get, because, excuse me, when I was 15, I mean, you're just full of confidence at 15. You rule the world, you know everything. I mean, I've got a couple of teenagers now, they know everything. Yeah. I mean, I've been there, I knew everything. And the older I got and the further that life got away, the more scared I became. Aging does scare the crap out of you to do anything new, to change anything. It's petrifying. But there's something very liberating about turning 40 and not giving a shit. You know, I started when I was 30, and I still, you know, I'm heavily invested in getting this job right.
Yeah.
But I've learned to take the nose and go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like at the start, if I got rejected, I was crying and questioning myself. But actually, I wasn't right for that job. And now that I've seen it televised a year later, I definitely wasn't right for it. They made the right call. Those people know what they're doing, the casting people. So I have to just hope that the job will come that will be right for me. And, you know, take the work very seriously and take the job very seriously and always be professional, but not take yourself too seriously. I think therein lies the trick.
Come here,
did I answer your question there, or did I wander off?
No, you answered it perfectly. I won't keep you for much longer. And thanks for giving me so much of your time. But I'm interested in, obviously you were in a mad situation where there's been a pause and everything. And were you in the midst of doing something when this was? Like, was there something?
I just got cast in a film, and I was getting a hooping and a hollering excited about it. And then 2 days later, we're shutting that down. I thought, Christ, because I was in Madrid filming in December, and then it was Christmas, and I was at home, and that was lovely. There was no work commitments or anything. And then January came, and I was doing audition after audition, and I just thought, God, I'm going to go through a long spell now of no's again. I just feel like when they're coming. And then next of all, you got a job. It's always a glee. When I see my agent ring and I say she's good news or bad news, but she wants to talk to me about it. So just casting this project, very excited about it, excited about who's in it. And they want you to play this character and blah, blah, blah. Great, all on board. And then with COVID closing it. Now, there's comfort in knowing that every other bugger's in the same boat, so I don't feel like it's just me. Yeah. So there is, and they've already been in touch again to say that production will be starting up, so they're getting the ball back rolling. I've been doing a lot of auditions over the lockdown in my attic upstairs, self-taping. Like, there's a lot of stuff casting and nothing running yet. So I've done a lot of tapes. There's a lot of stuff out there. I don't even remember what I've done now, to be honest with you. But I'm so preoccupied by the stuff that's gone on in the last 2 weeks that
are you
my head is.
Are you actually going to get in your head now? Going to get a chance to? But I think you spend a lot of time talking about the work that you've done. But I think the work that you've done yourself in the last few years has been phenomenal, and it hasn't just been about the people that have been, you don't get that lucky all the time. You know what I mean? So I think there's a bit of,
I know, I'm having to say to myself, actually, I have something. I mean, if I was going to tell the 100% truth, I'd say, yes, I have something. I know I do. I don't say that. I always doubt that I do, but I have a sense that I can connect to a story and a character, and I know I can, because I can feel it. I can't describe it. I can feel when I'm connecting with something. And so I'm starting to believe that it's my job now. I kind of thought that's a lucky break. That's another lucky break. But actually, I am working my ass off, and I am trying to get better all the time. And I'm willing to keep learning for another 40 years. I'm in it now. I want to stay in it, and I'm getting really greedy for it now.
Are you going to then offer yourself the opportunity to enjoy this madness of the stuff that doesn't really matter, but it's a great fun? Do you know what I mean? Like of and all of IFTAs and all of that, because that's important as well.
Of course, and I know that I watched these shows on the TV and I look at what they're wearing and what they're saying, and I just to be nominated and they're crying, and I think, oh, that's going to be me someday. And actually, I've said those words just to be nominated, because I swear to Christ, when you're not expecting it, it blindsides you. And it is such an honor just to be nominated. It really is. And to be in like the company of those women, Helena Bonham Carter, I mean, Jasmine Jobson, Naomi Aki, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. And that somebody who doesn't know me would say, you're as good as them, in you get.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And it's not about the nod. It's not about the awards. I cry as I smash the place up. It's not about that stuff. But it's so lovely. It's so lovely to get it. So I say it's not about that, but it's lovely. And I think about swanning up the red carpet in a big frock and all of that. And it's such a pity that, you know, I'm given a shot when the fucking world is closed down. And I think, oh, gives with one hand, takes away with the other. But I'll take it. I'll take the nomination in my bedroom, in my sitting room. I don't care.
But also, Helen, we have to say, given your first shot, you know, let's define it as that. Your first shot. There'll be more.
Yes. of many. One of many. I have nominations coming at me ears.
Amir, I'll let you go. Thanks so much, and thanks so much for talking to me. But also, you know, as one of the many who are working on the front line, thanks so much for that. Over the last kind of, and giving the people that you worked with so much comfort. And also thanks for giving me personally so much joy watching The Virtues, particularly over the last kind of year. It was just, yeah, it kind of blew me away. So, yeah, thanks very, very much for taking part in this, and good luck. Enjoy the next while.
Thanks very much. Absolutely, my pleasure. Fingers, toes, legs, eyes crossed, everything. Thanks a million. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.